gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here today. First things first, if you are new, if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out and enables me to continue to do what I love so I can keep bringing you content that you love. We are going to go over the Thursday night matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to talk about some of the key moments in this game, where momentum shifted, and then we're going to circle back and wrap it up and do a full recap of my thoughts on the game overall. But without any further ado, let's get into this Relentless Rundown. I want to start by talking about the Rams and kind of what I felt about their performance overall and how I see them as a team moving forward. So first, in this game, I think one of the first mistakes that the Rams made was giving up on the running game so quickly. It didn't work on that first possession how they wanted. But after that first possession, it almost felt like they decided, oh, okay, let's just sling it around then. Let's just air it out and beat this bottom five passing defense, which I can understand where you're coming from because the Seahawks secondaries look very beatable the whole year. But the reason that they're beatable, the reason that they've looked so poor, is because they don't have the capability of committing to stopping the run and also stopping the pass. That's why they're 32nd in the league against the run. So you have to do the first one before you can do the second one. And they almost gave up on that aspect. We saw, as the game went on, into that late second quarter, when they actually committed to Sony Michel of all people. He had 10 touches in the Rams' last possession before halftime. And guess what happened? The Rams scored the only points they scored in the half. So it obviously worked. Once that happened in the second half, it was all about that passing game. And Robert Woods looked incredible. He finished with 150 yards. He had 10 catches. And Cooper Kupp had almost 100 yards as well. So they were still able to get their receivers involved after committing to the run game. The other thing I would look at from the Rams is you got to get special teams figured out quick. Matt Gay missed an extra point. He kicked the ball out of bounds on kickoffs not once, but twice. In some games, you're going to be able to get away with that, and this is going to be one of them. But those kind of errors, when games get tougher and it's a play or two that ultimately costs you a win or a loss, those little things matter. The other thing is the defense. The Rams defense actually was fairly susceptible to the air in both halves. In the first half, Seattle didn't have a run game because Chris Carson was out. And the Rams had to know that going in, and they should have been more prepared. Now, I get it. You have Tyler Lockett and you have DK Metcalf. Those guys are studs. But Jalen Ramsey isn't no slouch. And that Rams secondary and the entire defense as a whole, they have studs at every level. And so for the Hawks to be able to move the ball so easily, really in both halves, sans those two possessions where Wilson was injured, it's a little bit concerning for me. The last thing that I would really touch on would be the penalties for Los Angeles. They came in as the least penalized team in the entire NFL. They had 91 penalty yards in 4 games, which is incredible. But in this one against the Hawks, they had 85 yards of penalties. Now, a big chunk of them came on a 47-yard pass interference call on Tyler Lockett that saved a touchdown, so you don't absolutely hate it. But you still have to get that ironed out. Now, I will say, I think that there was some questionable things going on in this game when you look at the Rams' defensive front seven, Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, all those guys. They had one holding call against them the whole game. Something smells fishy there. The Hawks had 3 penalties for 20 yards in this game total. Doesn't seem right. But at the same time, that's football. You have to find a way to work around it and be better so that you don't put yourself in a position where you have a backup quarterback with an opportunity to beat you. Now, with all that being said, I feel a lot better about the Rams coming out of this game, obviously, than I do last week when they got absolutely thrashed by Arizona. I still have Arizona as a team that is going to be the team to beat in the NFC West. They just proved that last week with their ability to dominate the Rams. But I think the Rams are right behind them and are clearly in the upper echelon of the top teams in the NFC. I see them as an easy top 5 team and probably a top 3 team. They are going to be fighting all season to try to claim that number 1 seed. They have the upper leg against Tampa already, and they have a chance to redeem themselves against Arizona later on in the season. It was a masterful performance by Matthew Stafford, who was playing injured and still able to produce. And I think if he can continue to play at that level, at that elite level, and they can lean on Darrell Henderson with a little bit of sprinkled in from Sony Michel and actually commit to that running game and get it going before they decide to sling it out, they are going to be a very hard team to beat. It's honestly pretty simple when we break down Seattle. The biggest thing here for them was not being able to capitalize on their opportunities. They had a chance early in this game to put some points on the board. They made the analytical decision to go for it on 4th down and 2 and failed, which is fine. And then they give up a penalty on a holding call after a 16-yard Tyler Lockett touchdown that could have made it 14-3. You go up 2 possessions at home. You have the momentum and the crowd behind you. You're feeling good. End up having to settle for a field goal that is missed. And so if you leave 10, 14 points potentially on the board, you're not going to win a lot of football games that way. After Russell Wilson got hurt, the Hawks just couldn't recover. And that was to no fault of Geno Smith. What it really came down to is on the possession he got hurt, that ended up being a wasted throwaway possession. And then the following possession, when they were trying to figure out, is he still good? Can he still throw the ball? And can we still go forward with him at quarterback? They basically threw that possession away as well because they tried a couple handoffs to just get him in the swing of things. And then he took a sack where he just looked a little timid and hesitant to unleash the ball downfield. And so when you give up 2 possessions and basically throw them away in a division matchup where 1 possession separates you, it's not a recipe for success. You got to be very encouraged with what you saw from Geno Smith. I'm not sure, and I'm not going to speculate on the timetable for Russell Wilson's return. Now, obviously, defenses are going to be able to now game plan if Geno ends up playing longer, and that will play into how he performs moving forward. But for him to come in the way he did under those impossible circumstances and perform to such an excellent level, you have to be encouraged if you're a Seahawks fan. However, what does not give you any confidence or reassurance is that defense. And boy, oh boy, did they look terrible, especially in the second half. They were giving up giant chunk yard plays again and again and again. And they didn't look capable of slowing down Los Angeles once they got rolling in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think that that's a mirage. Obviously, they're one of the worst ranked defenses overall in the entire NFL. And this is coming from a very proud organization who has been in the upper echelon for a long time. So you have to right that ship one way or another. You have to find a way to be able to get people off on 3rd down, to be able to get the ball back to your offense, because that's one of the key things that's keeping Seattle from winning games and keeping Seattle from being able to compete is that their time of possession, game in and game out, is not good enough. They are one of the worst teams in the entire NFL in being able to hold onto the ball. So what does that mean? It means your defense can't get off the field and they get more tired as the game goes on, and you give up bigger plays as the game goes on, and it wears you down. They clearly missed Chris Carson here. Alex Collins had just 15 carries for 47 yards and was basically a non-factor. You love to see your playmakers produce. Both Tyler Lockett and Metcalf looked great, and they will continue to do that. Bottom line for the Hawks, their offense is going to be able to put up points. But a lot of times against good football teams, I don't think it's going to matter. Overall for the Hawks, I think that they are a decent football team. I think that they're going to compete in most of the games that they're in, but their defense gives me zero confidence that they can do anything other than maybe steal a wild card berth. After these games, the Rams are now 4-1 and Seattle falls to 2-3. Let's now get into some of the key plays in this game, where momentum shifted and how it affected the outcome. The first key moment that I want to talk about was Seattle's second possession of the game. Now, they were able to move the ball downfield with a big strike to DK Metcalf, and they faced a 4th and 2 from the LA 29. Now, the third down play prior, they ran up the middle with Alex Collins, who was stuffed. And at this point in the game, the Hawks really hadn't been able to get anything going on the ground. And we knew that they were going to struggle because Chris Carson was out with that neck injury. So we knew that the strength of this offense was going to be in the passing game. And I know it is a short yard to go here, but I would have at least liked to see them try to use Wilson's feet, maybe use some kind of motion on 4th down, get some movement in the offense to try to confuse the Rams defense. Because if you're just going to run it into that ferocious front 7, you're not going to see a lot of success. However, on the 4th down play, that's exactly what they did. Exact same play really as their 3rd down play, as they ran it right up the middle. Collins gets stuffed, and the Seahawks lose opportunity here for points and have to turn it over on down. So that's a key, especially early in this game when so far nothing has really happened, to not be able to score first, get your fans excited and amped. We know how impactful that crowd can be in Seattle. They're called the 12th man for a reason, and it can really disrupt what an offense is trying to do on the other side. And so they also lose the opportunity for that. We now move to that late part of the first quarter, early second, after each of these teams split interceptions. And the Rams are facing a 3rd and 5. They've just moved into Seattle territory at the 47-yard line. The game is still tied at 0s apiece. This is a critical down, as it's the first time the Rams have really threatened and had an opportunity to get points on the board. Now, what happens is that there is a delay of game called. Clearly the crowd had an effect on it. But if you're Sean McVay and you're on the road and you have an opportunity to score first and get that momentum at least partially shifted in your way, you have to be more cognizant of the game that is around you and to not call a timeout. They had all 3. They're not that valuable at this point in the game. It's just horrible clock management, and that might be overlooked consistently, but it was a huge play because not only do they get the penalty, the next play on 3rd down and 10 now, they run a draw play. Instead of trying to get the first down, trying to push the ball downfield, they basically give up the possession. And this is an opportunity once again to get points on the board for your team. So it was just not only poor clock management, it was a poor call on the field, and it was a giant waste of such excellent field position. Seattle would end up scoring the touchdown on the very next drive, and the Rams would add a field goal. I want to move now to the very end of the first half. The Hawks get the ball with just about a minute exactly to play, up 7-3. Russell Wilson's able to find DJ Dallas for a 25-yard screen pass, and in addition, there's a roughing the passer on it. And so they get the ball now, and they are threatening late in the half. This drive would be capped by a 16-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Lockett. However, there is a holding call on the play. It was actually Seattle's first penalty of the game, which gives me pause just to begin with. But it takes the touchdown off of the board. And in that instance, the Hawks could have went up 2 possessions and could have really taken control of all the momentum and put a ton of pressure on Los Angeles that they would have felt coming out of halftime. Instead, with the holding call, they have to settle for a field goal, and then Jason Myers misses it again. He had that error in Minnesota. Apparently the curse travels now. And instead of being potentially up 14-3 at half, it's just a 7-3 game, and the Rams feel a heck of a lot better about themselves, only down 4 points. So we already talked about that error early where they missed points when they went for it on 4th, couldn't convert, and the questionable call there. And now they miss points here. So Seattle could legitimately be up 17-3, best case scenario 21-3, and have a stranglehold on this game. And so the Rams have to feel absolutely spectacular about saying, hey, we haven't played well at all. Our offense has been mediocre at best. Up until that last drive of the half, they hadn't had any points on the board. And they go into half down just 4. The one really positive thing that the Rams were able to do before halftime was get the ground game going a little bit. They finally committed to it on their last possession of the half, and it absolutely turned around that offense. They went from just trying to sling it around the field to actually depending and relying on the run to set up those passes down the field, to set up those wide receivers to give them some space. And once the defense started to commit to that and really move those linebackers up to help stop the run, there was more space for Woods. There was more space for Kupp over the top of the defense. And that would be, I would say, the biggest advantage that they gave themselves heading into half. So then what happens? We get to the 3rd quarter and the Rams' first possession. Stafford's been dealing with a injury to his finger so far all game, and it has clearly been bothering him. But he is able to put together a 96-yard touchdown drive where they are getting big chunk plays. And once again, it was because that defense was having to commit to the run and stop it, and it opened up plays over the top. The Rams would be able to actually score 13 unanswered due to that change in the defense. During Seattle's second possession, Russell Wilson actually dislocates his finger on a deep ball thrown to Tyler Lockett. He hit it on Aaron Donald's either his forearm or his helmet. And that not only hurts this possession, but the next possession as well, because he clearly looked uncomfortable after they got the ball and had worked on his hand a little bit, and he didn't throw with any zip. He wasn't able to really get anything behind it. And so not only do they have to punt when he gets injured, but they actually waste 2 possessions. And it's that second possession after they are forced to punt that I want to touch base on for a little bit here. And it has to do with one of the craziest plays that I have witnessed in 30 years of watching football. Seattle goes back to punt and it's blocked. Right now, the kicker makes an absolutely incredible play to scoop it up with one hand as he's getting chased and start to take off with what it looked like was going for the first down. Instead, at the last second, he decides to pull it up and he punts this sucker for the second time, 68 yards downfield. Now, I'm watching this at home, and I'm trying to understand how you can be allowed to punt the ball twice in the same play. So that's the first thing, which apparently in NFL rules, which is something they just added to the rule book, like that's a thing. You can punt the ball twice, which why, I don't know, but you can do it in the same play. So okay, fine, you can punt it on the same play according to the rule book, whatever. However, on the second punt, he's about a yard and a half ahead of the line of scrimmage. So I'm not a genius, but I know football. And in no universe can you advance the ball and then punt it for a second time on the same play. That can't happen. It can't. It's unacceptable. But it did. And the refs kind of looked at each other and literally looked like they didn't know what was going on, didn't know what to call, and come out and they just allow the punt. They say, okay, there's no penalty. They threw a flag, they just pick it up, no worries. And this ends up being a field position change of almost 80 yards in a pro NFL game where people's livelihoods, where money is being bet against. And so for me, that was just like, the NFL needs to go back and reevaluate, because that can't happen. So we move to the start of the fourth quarter. The Hawks make the decision to pull Russell Wilson. He's not healthy enough. He can't throw the ball the right way. And in comes Geno Smith, which most people probably didn't even know that Geno Smith was on the team. He's been there for like three and a half years. But Russell Wilson has the longest active streak of straight starts in the NFL. So he's just been sitting there warming up the bench. And so I know for me, when I see Geno Smith enter the game, I'm thinking, well, this is over. Like, we're done here. The Hawks had a good first half and made it a game for 3 quarters, but we're done. The Hawks have the ball at the 2-yard line. So this is a 98-yard drive we're talking about. Geno Smith goes 5 of 5 for 70 yards and throws a touchdown pass to DK Metcalf to cap it. He brings Seattle from the pits of despair to a 2-point ball game with 9 minutes to play. A couple things I would say here. Number 1, props to Geno Smith for being able to come in an impossible situation. He was prepared. He was leading the offense, audibling, getting them set in the right places. He was in full control. And it honestly, which sounds crazy to say, it honestly felt like there wasn't a drop-off at all from when Russell was in to when Geno came in. I mean, in fact, Geno Smith led the Seahawks to 150 yards of offense in the fourth quarter alone, which I wouldn't have thought was possible. So, mad props for what he was able to do. And on the other side of things, if you're the Rams, there's got to be some concern about that defense. Because when you have a backup coming in impossible situations, on the road in a division fight, if you're given a gift like that, you have to be able to capitalize. You have to take advantage of it. And they did not. They looked out of sorts. They looked like they were not prepared. And it almost cost them. Okay, so now we get to the end of the fourth quarter. We're at about 2 minutes to go in the game. Both offenses have been rolling. Geno Smith comes in and leads a touchdown drive. The Rams respond, and so does Seattle. So we're facing now 2:09 to play. The Rams are up 23-17, and the Hawks don't have any timeouts. But they have the ball, and they have an opportunity to steal this one from LA, which when you saw Geno Smith coming in the fourth, you would have taken that in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out, as Geno Smith throws a pick to no fault of his own, as Tyler Lockett falls down on the route. And it was just really, honestly, a bummer to see the game that was so epic with so many crazy things happening end that way. But honestly, I think the Rams deserve to win this game. They were the better team throughout, and they end up earning the victory. Please drop any thoughts, comments, or disagreements with me down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz. This is Relentless